All right, so this is an emergency update. It's about to get bloody. It's about to get violent, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. This is your World War III update. 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in this very spot, and I warned you that the markets were going to start to crash that very week. Very seldom do I make time-bound predictions on this channel. I've learned my lesson because often they were premature. But on that day, I just felt it in the pit of my stomach that this was the week. And like Babe Ruth, I pointed to the rafters and I said, this is the week. And I will pin that video in the comment section and post it in the description below for posterity. But I have a real bad feeling that this is the time that they crash it all. I actually think that now. Always in the back of our minds, if you've been in this game long enough, especially in the last 15 years, you're always thinking, okay, they're going to backstop it. They're going to come in. Plunge protection is going to work their magic. Somebody's going to buy the dip. Buffett's going to start buying. Somebody's going to start doing something, right? I have a real bad feeling that this is it. And the real problem here is that 65% of U.S. households have allocation in equities, higher than ever before. And despite $5 trillion being wiped off the map, since I made that prediction, crypto liquidated. The S&P 500, $4.5 trillion gone into the ether, into the eternal void of some plutocratic pocketbook. Despite all of that, we're still at 1929 levels of market overvaluation. This thing could crash and burn much, much lower. And now we get in the Tesla burning phase. This is the Tesla burning phase. They're burning Teslas, okay? I got a real bad feeling. This is a stream of consciousness. I want you guys, I have notes when I prepare these videos, guidelines, but I want you to know that a lot of my predictive power lies in my ability to just kind of take a step back and try to see the forest for the trees. And oftentimes, economists, because they're so knowledgeable about these things, that they're so close to the problem, is that they seldom can just take a step back and in hindsight they see it. And you have a lot of people coming out in the last few days saying, oh yeah, see, you carry the 4, you carry the, we seen it all along. No, you didn't. I called it 2 weeks ago, distinctly. I made the call. It wasn't a categorical prediction, but it was damn close. And unfortunately, that video only got 190,000 views. I wish it would have got more, because I think I could have saved a lot more people money, because people are going to start getting wiped out. Now, there's always that possibility. I hate being a Maso type financial analyst, and I'm not a certified financial analyst, whatever that means. But I hate being one of those people who's kind of on the fence with their predictions. I want to be bold, and in my gut, okay, I'm feeling that this could be the time that they crash the whole thing. And I never would say that typically, because there was always that, you know, maybe they'll come in and save at that time. The reason why, there's a reason why, and it's because this time you have foreigners divesting from the U.S. stock market. European pension funds divesting from the U.S. stock market. You see, as the U.S. was the global reserve currency, so were their markets. People invested in the U.S. markets, right? It was the best investment. Now you have divestment, because not only are people worried about tariffs, are they worried about trade wars, real wars, asset confiscation? It's a whole new ball game now. And even if the Fed were to step in and say, okay, we're going to lower rates, I don't even know if that'd be sufficient at this point. I think they're going to let it crash. And it also can be weaponized. And this is the thing. Trump and Elon are overplaying their hand right now, I do believe. I've always extend the benefit of the doubt, because you never know what they're thinking entirely. But MAGA is completely oblivious. And Trump is filibuster posting on Truth Social right now. I've never seen him post that much. Maybe it's normal, but every freaking minute, post. Just like total diversionary tactics, all of this superficial stuff and achievements, you know, He's posting about reruns of The Apprentice going live. Meanwhile, more money was lost on the stock market today than since 2020. And I think in actual terms, real terms, more was wiped off. That's in percentages. But when we're talking about real terms, I think more was lost today than a long, long time. Today was a bloodbath. And looking at futures right now, the NASDAQ is down 0.8% in futures trading. Usually, that's an indicator that it's going to go down much further than that intraday tomorrow. This could be it. This could be the time, because not only do you have elements within the U.S. government who may be at war with Trump, you also have foreigners who are no longer investing. This is why the euro is getting cranked. It's being injected right now with steroids because they're going into war mobilization mode. Remember what Salente says, when all else fails, they take you to war. That's what's happening in Europe. War mobilization, war stocks. So the Europeans are seeing this and they're saying, this ain't too bad for us. Despite the fact that we're going to have to go to World War III with Vladimir Putin, this ain't too bad. I think this could be the big one. And I'm not just being, I know people are going to, you're being alarmist. No. I actually think this is going to be the big one. A part of me wants to think that Warren Buffett is going to start buying the dip tomorrow. But if there ever was a perfect time for them to do it, it's now. Just crash it. Just, conflagration, raging inferno, burn out all the dead standing timber, and just start off with a blank slate. This could be it. But can you imagine the anger? See, never before have they had such an ideologically charged base. People who are basically worshiping Donald Trump. There's a base that is never going to waver in their support for Trump, no matter what happens. Which is not to say that there's not a portion of his base who is on the fence and swing voters. But that other base is there to the end, regardless. It's crash and burn. They'll watch their 401ks get wiped out and they'll still be there at the rallies. And you're never going to have that opportunity again. Not for a long time. So if you're going to crash this thing, you're going to do it on Trump's watch. Now, Trump is claiming it's the globalists who are doing this, which he wasn't claiming it was the globalists that were doing it when the markets were going up. And he was taking credit for that. But it's the globalists now, okay? So was this an unintended side effect of tariffs, something that they did not anticipate? Possibly. It's possible. But it doesn't look good, okay? Now, people are saying that this is all a ploy. This is the new cope that they're saying. Oh, they're trying to basically crash bonds so they can lower rates, and so that the Fed will start up the money printers again. And, they're making all kinds of excuses as to why this is happening right now, all kinds of 4D chess moves. Guys, Trump is filibuster posting on Truth Social about The Apprentice reruns. I mean, I don't think that's what, I think they're just, this is it in free fall. Now, you could make the argument, they got to crash and burn first, something like Reagan did, I believe, in his first term. They basically crashed the markets. I don't know if it was intentional, but they crashed. And in the latter 2 years of his presidency, of that first presidency, the market started going back up again. It could be. It very well could be the case. Get it out of the way first, right? That would be actually the smart thing to do. And these markets were way more overvalued than at any other time in history before Trump entered office. And I've long since said, whether they crash it on Trump or Trump does it himself, it's going to crash under Trump. Like, I've been saying that from the beginning. 2 weeks ago, I made that call, though, that it was going to happen that week. Now, there's a lot of other skullduggery afoot because Europe is ostensibly now at odds with the United States. And there was a hack that took down X today, almost took him down entirely. I believe it was the denial of service attack. Now, the group that was claiming responsibility for it has no known affiliation to Ukraine per se, although they are a pro-Palestinian group. So many of the mainstream media are promoting it as a Palestinian group who was to blame. But Elon came out in an interview in a very imprudent fashion and claimed that it was from a Ukrainian IP address. Now, I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I was consulting with somebody who was about this very matter. And they claim that the only way you can know where one of these exploits emerges from, one of these cyber attacks emerges from, is unless you created the thing itself, unless you created that very tool that they're using. That's the only way you can pinpoint, because there's 50 different proxies these things are behind to basically camouflage as to where the attack is coming from, which is why cyber attacks are so effective, because there's always an element of plausible deniability. So for Elon to come out and make the association that Ukraine was behind this, number one, Ukraine is not in a cui bono sort of way about this particular issue, because we're on the eve of what could very well be the deciding talks to determine whether or not the U.S. is going to continue to support Ukraine militarily. We're in the final stages of those talks. So unless there's some really twisted rogue elements within Ukraine who likely would not have the capability in and of themselves to do such an attack like that, especially seeing as they're basically under the gun right now, they're being chased out of Kursk. It's probably only a matter of time before that starts to collapse. That, that salient they made into Sudza. It appears as though the Russians, through some very bold tactical maneuvers, through pipelines and all this James Bond, Navy SEAL type stuff, were able to really start to encircle the Ukrainians in that region. So I don't think the Ukrainians have the resources right now, certainly not rogue elements therein, to be able to allocate to an exercise like, not an exercise, an attack like this. I don't think they have that, even as a nation state. I mean, it would be stupid for them to do that at this point in time. Now, does Elon have a lot of enemies? Absolutely. Is there probably a lot of back doors that have been compromised as a result of his sweeping firings from X years ago? It's very likely. Elon has made a lot of enemies, okay? But for him to come out and to basically implicate the Ukrainians in this without providing really any evidence, and it's very imprudent to do that. It's completely against typical corporate protocol to come out and start blaming nation states, even though he said, oh, it was someone within Ukraine. I mean, was it on the Russian side of Ukraine? Were they just using Ukraine as a proxy? I mean, it's not like they're just giving up IP addresses for this sort of thing. So if you look at any of the major cyber attacks that have happened in the last few years, typically they deny it, because they either deny it happened, or they don't just start disclosing exactly what happened, because there's potential insurance risks with that. There's corporate liabilities to take into account. Okay, I don't know all the fancy terminology, the legalese ado with this, but you definitely don't just start making accusations out the fly, because that has huge geopolitical repercussions, and it's just not good for your investors, okay? So it appears as though that the attack very well could have been, it could have been a variety of different people. But if you ask me, it smacks of a false flag. It smacks of being self-inflicted to a certain extent. For him to come out and say that Ukraine was implicated in all this seems very suspicious. And if he is as smart as they say he is, he would know that this could be made to look like a Ukrainian attack, right? And who has a vested interest in doing that? Well, it would be the Russians, right? Let's get real. Or it would be elements within the United States who perhaps wanted to pivot towards some other war theater. So I would be very careful of making any accusations. And of course, a lot of people who follow the guy uncritically eat up whatever he says immediately. As soon as he said that, everybody's reposting that, parroting that point of view, even though there really is no evidence. And when you really do the logical math, it just doesn't add up as to why they would do that. If this was Ukrainians who are trying to sabotage talks, like why would the Ukrainians sabotage their own talks? Like, it wouldn't make any sense. Even those radical elements within Ukraine stand to benefit from ongoing U.S. support. Now, it could be claimed that maybe there were elements in the UK who wanted to perhaps undermine this relationship, this deal, which might get in the way of a similar deal being made between the EU and Ukraine. We could, in fact, be seeing a bit of a Mexican standoff in that respect. But, it just doesn't add up. Okay, so this was a big cyber attack. Okay, this one was felt worldwide. And so this was no joke. This was clearly a denial of service attack. Who they attribute it to, who knows? They'll probably try to attribute it to everybody. They'll say it's a bit of Iran, and what they'll say is a group that supports the causes of Palestine and Iran and Ukraine, and they'll lump it all into one basket, right? So that they can have carte blanche to use it as justification for whatever sort of military intervention they're planning in the future. So that's what's going down. There was a cargo ship that was used for refueling military equipment that that ran into an oil tanker. And I believe, where did that happen? In the North Sea, off the coast of the UK, I believe. And so, who knows if that was cyber. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on right now. North Korea firing ballistic missiles in all directions, unveiling a new nuclear submarine. Elon has been making threats to numerous world leaders, including the Polish foreign minister, Radoslaw Sikorski, when he called him a little man and he told him to be quiet. That is called overplaying your hand. Even for Trump, that is extreme. For Elon to be doing that, throwing his weight around like that, that's just reckless. Okay, that's completely reckless. Iran, China, and Russia are currently doing naval exercises near the Strait of Hormuz. Trump, when asked about this, asked whether or not they're worried about the trifecta, the triple entente, or the, what would you call them, the axis of evil. And he said, no, we're more powerful than they are. Okay, if you say so. Iran is now in the final stages of basically determining how this thing is going to go. They currently have 13,350 advanced centrifuges, up from 450 when Biden took office. And Trump has basically written the Ayatollah a letter, allegedly. And in this letter, there's an ultimatum. Is that either we make a deal or we go to war? Now, the Ayatollah has rejected Trump's offer openly, saying that we're not going to negotiate with the United States. And why would they? Trump backed out of the JCPOA and killed Soleimani. They're not going to negotiate, which means that war is coming to Persia. U.S. is going to continue with their plan to house nuclear weapons in the UK, despite Russian drone surveillance. Now, I was telling you about this 2 years ago, but now it's in the final stages. U.S. nuclear weapons are returning to Britain for the first time in nearly 20 years. RAF Lockheath in Suffolk identified for nuclear reactivation. Satellite images show that 22 unused nuclear bunkers are currently undergoing extensive renovations. And this decision was fast-tracked following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. So this signals that the ties between the US and the UK, despite their differences over Ukraine, are still fairly strong if the Pentagon is going to follow through and deliver these nuclear weapons to the UK. Over 30 countries will participate in negotiations on peacekeepers in Ukraine tomorrow. They're going to do it. A coalition of the willing is being established. In the first part of the talks on Tuesday, the military will be presented with a plan by France and Britain to create a coalition of the willing to guarantee a potential peaceful settlement in Ukraine. So this is well beyond the hypothetical phase of planning. They're getting ready to deploy peacekeepers into Ukraine. It's now like a done deal. It's just a matter of what it's going to look like. And of course, the Russians are against that idea. And this is not including the Chinese, who the Russians have said would have to be involved in this in some capacity. And certainly on an equal footing, not like an EU-led coalition with the Chinese there. They would want it to be something UN-oriented, which everybody kind of had an equal footing, and I don't think that's going to happen. Back in January 29th of 2024, Trump said that this is the Trump stock market because my polls against Biden are so good that investors are projecting that I will win and that I will drive the market up. Everything else is terrible. Watch the Middle East, and record-setting inflation has already taken its toll. Make America great again back in January of 2024. Well, now it's the globalists who are crashing the market. Could both things be true? Maybe. I know people who need that cope will say that. I don't know if I agree with it. Yep. So the name of the organization that has claimed responsibility for the Major X cyber attack today is called Dark Storm Team. Okay? And they are claiming that they did a denial of service attack, according to a public Telegram post. More than 40,000 reports flooded Down Detector. I was one of them. So yeah, we're going to see a lot more of that. Hybrid warfare will become the norm. Now, Steve Witkoff is supposed to meet with Vladimir Putin tomorrow in Moscow. So we'll see what happens. We shall see what happens. That's all I got for you guys today. Be careful. Be very careful, because this could be the start of the real one. This could be the big crash. I have a sneaking suspicion that this would be the best time for them to do it. I don't think they're ever going to have a better opportunity to just do the big reset than now. What that means is a bloodbath in the markets. And because there's so much exposure by the average household to equities, that's going to be disastrous. And if the mega can hold the line, like gold and silver are holding the line right now, which are completely unfazed by any of this, if you haven't noticed. And we've been telling you to hedge your bets with that. But if mega can hold the line, then maybe they can prevent a revolution or, I don't know, insurrection, possibly just widespread protest and civil unrest. Maybe they can prevent that. But it could get so bad that even that is tested. Okay? So just be careful, guys, because this could be it. Thanks for watching Canadian Prepper Out.